What's going on, guys? It's me, Ross, from Arturis Fan Club, wearing a polo and joggers today. Can't see them, but I'm classy. Wanted to talk to you guys about the rumors swirling around today on Twitter around Justin Fields and what Matt Nagy had to say on a certain podcast. I don't normally post Bears content, but I'm trying to get a little more into it. Obviously, I'm a huge Bears fan, but for the most part lately, Arturis Fan Club, been talking about Bulls stuff. I would like to transition into talking more Chicago sports in general. I am a Cubs fan. I know there's a lot of Sox fans out there that watch me. Doesn't mean we can't talk about the Sox. Just not right this second because I'm not really an expert. I would consider myself definitely an expert on the Bears and the Bulls and the Cubs, but not quite on the Sox and the Hawks just yet. And the Sky. I'm getting there too. I digress. If you haven't followed me on Twitter at Arturis Fan Club, make sure to like, subscribe, all that stuff helps me a lot. Greatly appreciated. Thank you guys for doing that. My channel's been growing a lot lately, and it means a lot to me because this is a huge goal of mine to make content for you guys consistently, and seeing that feedback always helps me know that it's actually reaching the people who want to see it. So helps a lot. Thanks again. But I wanted to address some of the misinformation and speculation and just all the smoke. There's a lot of smoke in the air. So, I mean, first off, let's just listen to what he said. Okay.
Is there a possible scenario where Justin Fields plays on opening night?
No, I mean, Andy is our starter. And again, I can't predict anything, that's you know how it goes. I mean, there's so many things that could happen between today and that week one, but Andy is our starter and Justin's our number two, and we're going to stick to this plan.
So not really different than what he's been saying, right? This is kind of the same, like Andy Dalton is the starter. Anything could change, but right now Andy Dalton is going to be starting week one unless something changes. Like, he's been saying the same kind of thing over and over again throughout the entire offseason since they drafted Justin Fields. I will say I listened to the podcast and it sounds a little more like injury would be the thing that he's saying that, could change. If Andy Dalton were to suffer an injury, it sounds like they're really committed to letting Andy Dalton start week one against the Rams defense, no matter what happens in training camp or the preseason, no matter how good Justin Fields looks. But he's not closing the door entirely, right? He's still giving that little out of, unless something changes. So something, once again, could be injury. It could be Justin Fields just being fucking amazing in the preseason and in training camp and just being like, well, we'd be stupid not to start this guy. So I think they're being fair to Andy Dalton because they signed him before they ever drafted Justin Fields or knew they'd even have the opportunity to draft Justin Fields. So I think they're being fair to the guy that they paid, 1 year for, who is still a successful veteran quarterback in the NFL. I know he's not great. I'd certainly think he's an upgrade over what we saw last season from the Bears quarterback room. He's definitely better than Nick Foles. He's right around or better than Mitchell Trubisky. I don't want to talk about Mitchell Trubisky. I'm really done with Mitchell Trubisky. So that's the last time I really want to say his name for a long time. Okay. Unless it's in the context of, it's the preseason and we're beating Mitchell Trubisky because the Bears play them in the preseason, which I think we'll do like a preseason preview coming up closer to July and August when they start their training camp. They're doing veteran mini camp right now, or veteran OTAs or whatever they're called. And the only player who didn't show up was Eddie Goldman. That's a tough one. We'll get to Eddie Goldman. Let's finish off on this Matt Nagy thing real quick. Twitter was a shitstorm today because of this. People were saying that Matt Nagy said that there is no chance that Justin Fields plays week one, which I don't think he said that. I don't think he said that there's no chance. I think he just kind of said what he's been saying. It's Matt Nagy speak. I mean, if you've listened to him speak enough, the way he kind of talks and how things are kind of coded. He doesn't really make like grand, proclamations one way or the other. He always kind of gives himself an out, which is coach speak. Coaches do that. It's nothing new. It's it's not something unique to Matt Nagy. Like Ryan Pace does it. Lovie Smith used to do it. John Fox used to do it. Like it's just how coaches talk. I don't think there's really anything to be read into, honestly. And I know like the way that it was phrased, the question was asked, is there a chance that Justin Fields starts week 1? And then he said, no, we're going through, if anything changes. So like, I think it's just the way he talks. Really, I don't think there's anything to read into here. It's the same answer he's been giving for weeks, months now. There's really nothing to read into. So I think Bears fans, nothing has changed. Matt Nagy is still going to most likely go with the best player, whoever that ends up being. I don't think that this conversation with Chris Collinsworth on a podcast is going to change what decisions they make in a month during training camp. Like that. I don't know. It's just such a non-story to me. It just doesn't matter at all, in my opinion. It's the off season. There's, only so much content we can really get out of these practices and OTAs and stuff like that. So like we're so excited right now as a fan base, which is crazy to think of how far we've come in just a couple months. So we're kind of latching on to every word. We want Justin Fields to be the starter naturally because he's our exciting up and coming quarterback. Of course, we want him to play. He will play at some point this season. Just want to say that. Andy Dalton is not Alex Smith. The Bears are not the Chiefs, unfortunately. At some point, we will see Justin Fields this season. And I hope it's not because of injury. You don't want to see anyone get injured. But at the same time, I don't want Andy Dalton to suck either. So it's kind of one of those bittersweet situations of like, well, I hope we don't have to do it too soon. I hope Andy Dalton is able to be a competent and good, not even just competent, but like a good quarterback to win some games so that we don't have to sit here and argue about when Justin Fields is going to play, which we will inevitably. We just will. I think the Bears play the Lions week 4 at home. To me, that game feels like the right time because it's after a stretch against a couple of good teams. You're at home. It's a familiar foe that you've played really well against as of late. That might be the time for Justin Fields to come in. And, having the OSU and Michigan rivalry might be a little fun for him to shit on Michigan fans one last time. I don't know. Could be a cool little storyline to follow. I don't know. That's kind of what happens when, you draft a Big Ten quarterback into the NFC North. There's a lot of feelings there between some of those college fandoms. So I used to be a University of Michigan fan, so I definitely am not an Ohio State fan necessarily, but I love Justin Fields. So things like that really don't bother me. I've never been super into college football anyway. I lived in Michigan for a while and, I lived around a lot of University of Michigan fans. So it kind of got swept up into it. Honestly, lately, I've been more of a Northwestern fan. I really like what they're doing with their program. Speaking of teams that played Justin Fields really, really well, Northwestern's one of them. So one of the few. So that was an interesting thing to watch as a fan of that team, watching him get drafted to the Bears, where, most Northwestern fans are Bears fans. Pat Fitzgerald, obviously, Chicago guy. Just cool things like that, little connections that I think really played in our favor for making this all work. It's fun when things all kind of come together like that. Moving on from Justin Fields, the other thing that came down today was that Eddie Goldman is the only player, I think, out of the whole team for veteran OTAs that, mandatory, that did not show up. And it is being considered an unexcused absence. If you guys remember, Eddie Goldman sat out last season. He was one of the opt-outs due to COVID and was primed for a very big season. He is looking, if he continues his success from 2019 and 2018, at a payday coming up very soon. Not something we want to see. If he doesn't want to play football anymore and he wants to retire, that's tough for us. From a human standpoint, I get it. I'm not going to criticize the guy. He might have family stuff going on, personal stuff, health. I think he was high risk with COVID too. So I mean, hey, I understand it. It just, from the football perspective, sucks because he was such an integral part of the interior D line. He's a big guy paired with Akeem Hicks, who's aging and has his own injury issues. They were very formidable, and he was missed greatly last season, especially in the run game. So that would be tough. I know the Bears are taking a look at a couple potential free agents out there. They brought in linebacker Brandon Marshall, not receiver Brandon Marshall, for you old heads, I guess. Not really that old, but starting to feel like it. The linebacker who used to play for the Broncos. They're looking at an O-lineman too, but anyway, Morgan Moses, I think, right? Either way, the problem with losing Eddie Goldman is you are losing a very good player in his prime, and you really can't replace that. You can look on the veteran market, you can look at free agents, probably not in any position to make a trade right now, but yeah, it's a crappy situation overall. We'll have to monitor it and see where it goes. Maybe he ends up coming back and rejoining the team. Maybe he retires. We'll see. For now, that's all we know. And, as the practices continue and we get closer to training camp, that's what Matt Nagy said. He expects him to be available and present at training camp in July or August. Yeah, July, I think, is when it starts and bleeds into August. So once again, we'll just have to monitor it and see where it goes. There's really not much to talk about there right now, but it is something that could potentially suck. So we'll keep track of it. I think I'll call it there, guys. Like I said, really not much to worry about with what Matt Nagy said today. Don't read into it. Don't let it get to your head. It's really not that big of a deal. Justin Fields will play when it's time and when they're ready for him to play. And I don't think anyone's going to be making, Andy Dalton's just going to play just because that's what we say. I know that Matt Nagy has a lot of faults, but I don't think he's the kind of person or coach that would actively tank the team's potential of winning just because he said a thing on a podcast. You know what I'm saying? He's not that kind of guy. So we will see. But thank you guys for checking out my first Bears video in a long time. It's been a while. I try to do more of these. Try to get on here, talk about some baseball, football. I'll try to get into WNBA. I'm going to try my best. I don't have a lot of time, but I'm trying my best. I got a full-time job. I got other stuff going on in my life, but try my best. So thank you guys for checking it out. Make sure to hit up arturisfanclub.com/blog for all the latest Bulls and NBA content. And we will talk again very soon. Peace.